Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Leo. We're really happy you're here with us today.
Today's topic feels very close to my heart. We're going to talk about daily life as a PhD student. Not the fancy version, not the academic success version, just the real, normal, sometimes messy daily routine.
Yes, the version where you wake up tired, drink too much coffee, question your life choices, and still open your laptop again.
Exactly. Because when people hear PhD, they imagine something very impressive. They imagine big libraries, smart discussions, maybe serious faces and big books.
But they don't see the quiet mornings, the doubt, the slow progress, the feeling of working on one problem for weeks.
Or the strange mix of freedom and pressure. You choose your schedule, but at the same time, your work is always waiting for you.
So today, we want to describe our real daily routine. The simple things, the habits, the emotions, the small struggles.
And maybe if you're a student or thinking about doing a PhD or even just working on a long-term goal, you'll see that you're not alone.
Yes, and if you enjoy these honest conversations, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really supports us.
Thank you for being here. So, Leo, what does your normal day look like as a PhD student?
Where do I start? Okay, let's start there. My day usually starts earlier than I want. My alarm rings at 6:30, and every morning I have the same thought. 5 more minutes. But I know if I sleep again, my whole day feels heavy.
I feel that. Do you wake up quickly?
Not really. I sit on the edge of the bed for a moment. I just look at the wall. I think about my tasks. I remember the unfinished experiment or the chapter I need to write. Sometimes I already feel stressed before I even stand up.
That happens to me too. The work is waiting in your mind before it even starts.
Yes, exactly. And because PhD work is not something you finish in one day, it feels endless. There's always more to read, more to fix, more to improve. I try to keep one healthy habit. I don't touch my phone for the first 20 minutes. I wash my face, make coffee, and just sit quietly. That small silence helps me feel like I own my morning, not my research.
I like that. I usually check my emails too early, and sometimes one email can change my mood for the whole day.
Oh, yes, especially if it's feedback from your supervisor.
Yes, that feeling when you see a long email and you think, is this good or bad?
Or when you send a draft and wait for days. That waiting is also part of the routine.
It really is. For me, after coffee, I open my notebook and write a short plan for the day. Nothing complicated, just 3 main tasks. If I write 10 things, I feel overwhelmed.
Same. I learned that the hard way. In my first year, I made very long to-do lists. I thought that meant I was productive. But at the end of the day, I felt like a failure because I finished only half.
I did that too. It's strange. We are adults. We are studying at a high level, but emotionally, sometimes we feel like students again, afraid of not doing enough.
That's very true. After planning, I usually go to campus around 8:30. I like working there because when I stay at home, I get distracted. The bed is there, the kitchen is there, everything calls my name.
Yeah, the fridge is very attractive during writing time.
Exactly. On campus, I sit in the same spot almost every day. It feels safe, like a small territory. Sometimes we say hello. We ask simple questions like, "How's your project?" But often the answer is short because everyone is carrying something heavy in their head.
I understand that. There's this quiet understanding between PhD students. You don't need to explain everything. You just look at each other and you know.
Yes, we all know the feeling of reading one paper for 2 hours and still not fully understanding it.
Or rewriting the same paragraph 5 times?
Exactly. My mornings are usually my most focused time. I try to do deep work first. If I have to analyze data or solve a difficult problem, I do it before lunch.
Is that easy for you?
Not always. Sometimes I sit in front of my computer and my mind feels empty. I read the same sentence again and again. On those days, I feel guilty. I think, why am I so slow? Other people are publishing. Other people are moving forward.
That comparison, it's painful.
Very. Social media makes it worse. Someone shares their accepted paper. Someone posts about a conference. And you're sitting there with an unfinished draft.
I feel that too. Even when I know everyone has struggles, I still compare.
Yes. And the strange thing is, our daily routine looks calm from outside. We sit, we type, we read. But inside, it's a constant dialogue. Am I good enough? Is this idea strong? What if this doesn't work?
I think people don't see that mental noise.
They don't. They see the title PhD student. They don't see the doubt at 10:47 a.m. when your code doesn't run or your experiment fails. At first, frustration. I move my chair back, I close my eyes. Sometimes I want to quit for 5 minutes. But then I breathe and try again because I know this is normal. Research is not straight. It's messy.
I like that you say it's messy. That word feels honest.
It is honest. Around 12:30, I usually feel tired. Not physically tired, mentally tired. Like my brain used too much energy.
That mental exhaustion is real.
Yes, and that's only half of the day. Sometimes I go for a short walk before lunch. Just 10 minutes. It helps me reset.
I started doing that too, because if I stay in my chair all day, I feel stuck, like my thoughts are also stuck.
Exactly. And when I walk, I often think more clearly. Some solutions come when I'm not forcing them.
That's interesting. So your routine is not only about working, but also about protecting your mind.
I'm learning that. In the beginning, I thought working longer hours meant being a good PhD student. Now I see that being consistent and calm is more important.
That's a big realization.
It took time. What about you? How does your day continue after the morning?
After the morning focus time, I usually check emails and messages. That's when reality hits. Meetings, deadlines, small administrative tasks.
The invisible work.
Yes, the invisible work. Forms to fill, documents to send, small things that don't feel like research, but still take energy.
That's so true. People think we only think big thoughts all day.
If only that were true.
So, when you look at your daily routine, do you feel proud or tired?
Honestly, both. But more tired than proud, if I'm being completely real.
I understand.
And I think that feeling is something many PhD students carry quietly. After lunch, I usually feel a little slow. My body wants to rest, but my mind knows I still have many hours ahead. That time of day is always strange for me. I sit back at my desk, look at the screen, and it feels like starting a new day again.
I know exactly what you mean. The morning feels focused and serious. The afternoon feels longer, heavier.
Yes, and sometimes after lunch, I have meetings with my supervisor or with other researchers. Before those meetings, I always feel a small anxiety in my stomach.
Even now? After all this time?
Yes, even now. I prepare slides, I check my results again, I practice what I will say, and still I feel nervous. Because I care. I want to show progress. I want them to see that I am working hard.
That pressure is quiet but strong. No one shouts at you. No one forces you every day. But inside, you want to prove yourself.
Exactly. And when I sit in front of my supervisor, I sometimes feel small. Not because they are unkind, but because they know so much and I am still learning.
That feeling of being the least experienced person in the room, it can be hard.
Yes. But sometimes something beautiful happens. I explain an idea and they nod, or they say, "That's interesting." And for a moment, I feel proud, like maybe I belong here.
Those small moments mean a lot.
They really do. They give energy for the next few days. Because many days are quiet. You work alone, you think alone, you doubt alone.
PhD life can feel lonely, even when you are in a big building with many people.
Yes, that's something I didn't expect before starting. I thought university life would be full of discussions all the time. But in reality, many hours are just you and your thoughts.
And sometimes your thoughts are not very kind.
That's true. In the afternoon, when I'm tired, my inner voice becomes more negative. It says things like, "You are too slow," or "Other people are doing better." I try to answer that voice, but it's not always easy.
What do you say to yourself when that happens?
I try to remember that research is not a race. I remind myself that deep work takes time. And I think about the first day of my PhD. I remember how lost I felt. And then I see that I have actually grown.
That's important. We forget our own progress because we are so focused on the next step.
Yes, we always look forward, rarely backward.
My afternoons are usually for smaller tasks. Answering emails, reading articles, editing text. I don't try to solve big problems after 3 p.m. I learned that my brain doesn't like that.
That's very honest. I also started to respect my energy. Before, I forced myself to work on difficult analyses at night. It didn't work. I just felt frustrated.
I think one of the biggest lessons in a PhD routine is learning how your mind works.
Yes, you become very aware of your habits. When you are focused, when you are distracted, when you need a break.
And breaks are not laziness.
No, they're not. But it took me time to believe that.
Same. I used to feel guilty if I left campus at 5 p.m. I thought a real PhD student should stay until 8 or 9.
I had that idea too. Like suffering more means achieving more.
But then I noticed something. On days when I worked 12 hours, my productivity wasn't double. Sometimes it was worse.
That's so true. The quality of thinking matters more than the number of hours.
Exactly. Around 5:30, I usually pack my bag, and that moment feels emotional sometimes. I look at my desk, papers everywhere, notes, my coffee cup, and I think, this is my life right now.
That sounds almost poetic.
It feels like that. A simple desk, but it holds my future.
Wow, I feel that deeply. Because when you are a PhD student, your work is not just a job, it's part of your identity.
Yeah. When someone asks, what do you do? And you say, I'm a PhD student, it carries weight.
And expectations.
Yes. People think you are very smart. And you think, if only you knew how confused I felt this morning.
Exactly. That's the secret. We often feel unsure.
After I go home, I try to disconnect, but it's not always easy. Sometimes I open my laptop again after dinner, especially if something is unfinished.
I struggle with that too. The work follows you home in your mind, even if you close the laptop.
Yes. I can sit on the sofa watching a show, but part of my brain is thinking about my research question.
That's the invisible part of the routine, the mental load that never fully disappears.
How do you relax?
I try to create small rituals. I make tea, I read something that is not academic, or I call a friend. Talking about normal life helps me remember that I am more than my thesis.
That's important. Sometimes we forget we are also just people.
Yes, people with families, with hobbies, with fears, with dreams outside academia.
Do you ever question why you started?
Sometimes, especially on hard days, when I read critical feedback or when my results are not clear, I think, why did I choose this long road?
And what answer do you find?
I remember that. I love understanding things deeply. I love asking questions. I love that moment when something finally makes sense. Those moments are rare, but they are powerful.
I feel the same. When a problem that bothered me for weeks suddenly becomes clear, I feel alive.
Yes, it's like a small light in a dark room.
But the dark room is still there most days.
That's true. The routine is not glamorous. It's quiet work. It's repetition. It's reading, writing, deleting, writing again.
And waiting. So much waiting.
Waiting for feedback, waiting for results, waiting for acceptance.
It teaches patience.
It does, and maybe humility.
Yes, because you realize how much you don't know.
When I think about my daily routine, it's simple on the outside. Wake up, work, meetings, emails, go home, sleep.
But emotionally, it's complex.
Very complex. Some days I feel strong and focused. Other days I feel small and unsure.
And the strange thing is, both days look similar from the outside.
That's so true. Someone watching you would see the same person sitting at the same desk.
But inside, it's a different story.
Yes, and I think that's something we don't talk about enough.
We don't. People talk about publications and conferences, but not about the quiet 2 p.m. doubts.
Or the 7 a.m. fear before opening your email.
Or the feeling of reading your own writing and thinking, is this really good enough?
That question, it follows me almost every day.
Me too.
And yet, every morning we wake up again
and continue.
That's something important.
Yes. Maybe the routine is not about being perfect. Maybe it's about showing up, even when you feel unsure.
I like that. Showing up.
Because most days, that's what it feels like. Not heroic, just consistent.
And consistency is quiet strength.
I agree. But sometimes, even with consistency, the weight feels heavy.
When does it feel heaviest for you?
When progress is slow, when I work for weeks and see only a small result, that's when my motivation shakes.
I know that feeling too well.
It makes me wonder if I'm moving forward at all.
And that thought can be scary.
Yes, because this is not a short journey, it's years.
Years of small steps.
Exactly.
Years of small steps. And sometimes those steps are so small that you almost cannot see them. And that is when the routine feels the heaviest. Because you wake up, you work, you try again, and at the end of the day, you are not sure if you really moved forward or if you just stayed in the same place, thinking in circles.
Yes, that feeling of moving in circles is very real. And there are days when I open the same document that I worked on yesterday and I read the same paragraph and change only 2 or 3 words and then close it again, feeling tired. And I think, is this really what progress looks like?
I think many people imagine that progress in a PhD is dramatic, like discovering something big in one moment. But in reality, it is more like pushing a very heavy door, very slowly. And sometimes the door moves only 1 centimeter, and you have to use all your energy just for that one small movement.
That is such a good image. Because some days I really feel like I am pushing something heavy with both hands. And I am not even sure what is on the other side of that door. But I keep pushing because I started this journey and I want to see it through.
And the strange part is that from the outside, our daily routine still looks calm and simple because people see us sitting in front of a computer, typing, reading, maybe drinking coffee, but they do not see the emotional effort that happens inside during those quiet hours.
Exactly. Because while I am sitting there in silence, my mind is having long conversations with itself. And sometimes those conversations are supportive and kind, but sometimes they are critical and loud, asking me why I am not faster, why my ideas are not clearer, why I am not already finished.
I have those inner conversations too, especially in the late afternoon when my energy is low and my patience is almost gone. And that is usually when I start questioning not only my work, but also myself. And I begin to connect small mistakes with big fears about the future.
That connection is so dangerous. Because one small problem in your data can suddenly become a big story in your head about not being capable enough. And that story can follow you even when you leave the office and walk home in the evening.
Yes, I have walked home many times with that heavy feeling in my chest, replaying the day in my mind, thinking about what I could have done better or what I should do tomorrow. And even when the sky is beautiful or the weather is calm, my thoughts are still busy and serious.
I think one of the hardest parts of the daily routine is that the work is never fully finished at the end of the day, because there is always one more thing to check, one more article to read, one more idea to explore. So it is difficult to close the door mentally.
That is very true. And sometimes I sit at dinner with my family and they ask me how my day was, and I say it was fine, because it is hard to explain that I spent 8 hours thinking deeply about something that most people would not understand,
or maybe not find interesting.
I understand that so much. Because explaining your research in simple words is already difficult. But explaining your emotional experience of doing research is even harder. And sometimes you just do not have the energy to describe it.
And that is why talking to other PhD students feels comforting. Because even if we work in different fields, we understand the rhythm of this life. The slow mornings, the long afternoons, the quiet pressure, and the strange mix of freedom and responsibility.
Yes, that mix is very strong. Because on one hand, nobody is controlling every minute of your day, and you can choose when to work and how to organize your time. But on the other hand, that freedom means that you are fully responsible for your progress, and that responsibility can feel heavy.
In a normal job, you often have clear tasks and clear results. And at the end of the day, you can say, I finished this. But in a PhD, the line between working and not working is blurry. And sometimes thinking in the shower feels like work. And sometimes staring at the screen for an hour feels like nothing.
That blurry line makes the daily routine emotional because you are not only managing tasks, you're managing your own motivation, your focus, your self-doubt, and your expectations all at the same time.
And when motivation is low, the routine feels much harder because you still wake up at the same time. You still go to the same desk. You still open the same files. But your heart is not fully there. And that distance between your body and your motivation creates tension.
I have days like that when I sit in my chair and I know exactly what I should do, but I feel resistance inside, like a quiet voice saying, I don't want to. And then I feel guilty for feeling that way because I chose this path.
That guilt is common, especially because becoming a PhD student is often a dream or a goal that we worked hard to reach. So when we feel tired or unmotivated, we judge ourselves instead of accepting that we are human.
Yes, and I think part of growing in this journey is learning to see that tiredness does not mean failure, and doubt does not mean weakness. But that understanding takes time, and it does not come in one day.
It grows slowly, just like our research grows slowly. And maybe that is something the daily routine teaches us without us even noticing. Because every day we face small challenges, and every day we choose to continue.
I like that idea, because when I look at my routine from a distance, I see that it is not dramatic or exciting most of the time, but it is steady, and there is something powerful in that steadiness.
Yes, and even on the hardest days, when I feel stuck and frustrated, I still open my notebook the next morning and try again. And maybe that simple act of trying again is more important than any single result.
That is beautiful, because the routine becomes a kind of quiet training for patience and resilience, even if we do not call it that. And even if we just think we are doing normal work.
And maybe one day, when we look back at these years, we will not only remember the papers or the presentations, but also the mornings when we sat with our coffee and faced our doubts, and the afternoons when we felt tired but did not give up.
Yes, because the daily routine is not only about building knowledge, it is also about building ourselves, slowly and sometimes painfully, but very deeply.
You know, when I think about it more deeply, I realize that my daily routine as a PhD student has slowly changed me in ways that I did not expect at the beginning. Because I started this journey thinking it was only about research and knowledge.
But over time, I understood that it was also about learning how to live with uncertainty and how to trust myself, even when the results are not clear.
I feel that too, because in the first year, I was always looking for clear answers and quick progress. And when I did not get them, I felt disappointed and sometimes even ashamed. But now I see that uncertainty is not a sign that I am failing. It is simply the nature of doing something new and difficult.
Yeah, and that understanding did not come from one big moment. It came from many ordinary days that looked simple on the outside, but were emotionally intense on the inside. Because every day I had to choose between giving up on a problem or staying with it a little longer.
And staying a little longer is not always dramatic. Sometimes it just means reading one more page when you feel tired, or trying one more small change in your analysis when you think it will not work. And those tiny decisions slowly build confidence without you even noticing.
Exactly. Because confidence in a PhD does not suddenly appear after one success. It grows quietly through repetition, through showing up again and again, even when you are not fully sure of yourself.
I remember a recent evening when I was walking home after a very normal day. Nothing special happened, no big results, no big praise, but I suddenly felt calm. And I realized that even though the progress was slow, I was no longer as afraid as I used to be.
That is powerful because fear is often part of the daily routine, especially in the beginning when everything feels new and you feel like everyone else knows more than you.
Yeah. And I used to think that one day I would wake up and feel completely confident, like a real expert who has no doubts. But now I see that confidence and doubt can live together, and that is actually normal.
I agree, because even now, when I understand my topic much better than before, I still have moments of doubt. But those doubts no longer stop me. They just become part of the conversation in my mind, not the final decision.
That is such an important shift. Because at first, doubt felt like a wall that blocked my way. But now it feels more like a question that I can answer slowly and patiently.
And I think the daily routine helped us reach that point because routine creates stability, and stability gives space for growth, even if that growth is not visible every day.
Yes, the routine that once felt boring or heavy now feels almost comforting sometimes. Because I know what my mornings look like, I know how my afternoons usually feel, and that familiarity makes the difficult moments less scary.
There is something beautiful about that because we often search for excitement and big changes. But in reality, it is the simple, repeated actions that shape us the most.
When I imagine finishing my PhD one day, I do not only imagine the final defense or the celebration. I also imagine looking back at all these ordinary days, the early alarms, the quiet desks, the cups of coffee, the small frustrations, and I think I will feel grateful for them.
I think so too, because those ordinary days are the real story. They're the hidden chapters that nobody sees, but that carry most of the weight and meaning.
And maybe that is something our listeners can relate to, even if they are not PhD students, because many long-term goals feel the same. They are built in silence through routines that sometimes feel repetitive, but are actually building something strong underneath.
Yes, whether someone is studying, working, learning a new skill, or raising a family, there is always that daily effort that does not look impressive from the outside, but requires emotional strength on the inside.
I think if I could give one gentle piece of advice from my daily routine, it would be to respect your own pace.
Because comparing your progress to others can steal your peace very quickly. And peace is something you need if you want to continue for years.
That is very true. And I would add that it is important to create small moments of kindness toward yourself inside your routine, because you are not a machine. You are a human being trying to grow, and growth takes energy and patience.
Sometimes that kindness is just allowing yourself to close the laptop in the evening without guilt and saying, I did what I could today, even if it was not perfect.
And sometimes it is celebrating a small achievement, like understanding a difficult concept or finishing a challenging paragraph, even if nobody else sees it.
Because in the end, the daily routine is not only about finishing a thesis. It's about becoming someone who can stay with difficulty without running away.
And that skill, staying with difficulty, is something that will stay with us long after the PhD is over.
Yes, that gives me hope, because it means that even on the hardest days, something valuable is happening inside, even if the results are not visible yet.
So when I wake up tomorrow and hear my alarm again, I know it will feel ordinary, maybe even tiring. But I will also remember that this ordinary day is part of a bigger journey, and that thought makes it a little lighter.
I feel the same. And I think that is the quiet beauty of this life. Not perfect, not easy, sometimes heavy, but full of meaning if we look closely.
Thank you for sharing this so honestly today.
Thank you too. And thank you to everyone who listened and maybe saw a piece of their own routine in our words.
Whatever you are working on right now, we hope you can be patient with yourself and trust that small steps still count.
And we hope that tomorrow morning, when your alarm rings, you remember that showing up again is already something brave.